Businesses are unlikely to be penalised if they can't prevent unvaccinated customers entering their premises. The Health Minister says the focus will be on big fines for individuals who break the rules. And police say they won't be checking the vaccination status of patrons when the lockdown ends in 2 weeks. Here's state political reporter Ashley Raper.
A day on from announcing the state will reopen to the unvaccinated in December, the government is trying to keep vaccination rates on track.
I hear conversations now that we don't need to get vaccinated. Well, yes, you do. Are you kidding yourself if you think you don't need to get vaccinated?
Fully vaccinated people will get new freedoms in 2 weeks, and some businesses are nervous.
For a small business like myself and like for all the small businesses out there, how are we going to be able to control that?
What powers do businesses have to reject customers that have or refuse to be vaccinated? What protections will they have under the law?
An assurance has been given that help will be at hand, but only when required.
We will not be walking through restaurants and cafes and pubs checking if people are double vaccinated. We will certainly be assisting restaurant owners and shop owners if they are refusing the entry to someone.
The Minister insists other agencies like liquor and gaming will enforce the rules.
I don't think the police should be at the forefront of this at all.
One service that is starting to reopen now is Breast Screen New South Wales, which was shut down more than 5 weeks ago.
Our priority with all services will be to rebook women as soon as we possibly can. Women who've had the appointment cancelled due to the temporary suspension.
The state has recorded 863 new cases and 7 more people have died. While the health system is already stretched, it may not get as bad as predicted.
Vaccinations are making a difference to the modelling, and I think what we're seeing now is at least a hope that we may not get as much pressure as we thought on our hospital system.
94% of health workers have now had at least 1 dose of the vaccine, and there's a warning for the remaining 6%.
If they want to put their patients and their colleagues at risk, well, they won't have a position.
The Health Minister was clear. The public health orders will be enforced, whether it's mandatory vaccination for healthcare workers and school teachers or stopping the unvaccinated from entering cafes and restaurants. The orders for that haven't been finalised, but Brad Hazzard says businesses are unlikely to be penalised. It'll be individuals facing hefty fines for breaking the rules. Ashley Raper, ABC News, Sydney.
Restaurant operators are looking forward to welcoming back customers and serving meals again, but now there's the stress of finding enough staff. Many venues have traditionally relied on employing foreign students, and they're now struggling to be ready for the end of lockdown.
The meals are ready, but they risk going to waste in 2 weeks if there's no one to serve them.
So at the moment, the market is very slow when it comes to people applying for jobs.
Authenticity is everything when your restaurant is located in Sydney's Little India. Homemade curries, usually served by waiters, proud of their culture and traditions. The problem is most were sent packing when the pandemic hit, so finding replacements by October 11th is proving impossible.
At the moment, international students haven't been coming to Australia for over a year and 8 months or 9 months, and that has really seen a huge drop of people wanting to work as casuals.
This Lebanese restaurant overlooks the Parramatta River. Normally a job here would attract 200 applicants, but
when COVID happened and, they shut the borders, you put an ad, you will get probably 10, 5, like sometimes I get three applicants for a period of 3 months.
Many hospitality venues rely on international students studying at universities to serve their customers. Hundreds are due back in New South Wales by the end of the year, but that's still months away. For this restaurant owner, getting staff is one thing. Making sure they are all vaccinated in time has been challenging.
I spoke with my other workers as well. Some of them they haven't, but if anyone wants to come for work, they have to be fully vaccinated.
A message to workers but also customers as restaurants prepare to put down the chairs and get on with business. Mark Reddy, ABC News, Sydney.
Relief is on the way for 3 regional communities in New South Wales, but 2 others have gone back into lockdown. Louisa Rubo is on the mid-north coast. Louisa, what's happening where you are?
Well, Jeremy, Port Macquarie residents have gone back into lockdown at 6 o'clock tonight. Authorities are concerned about more than 20 venues visited by a recent positive case from Sydney and 2 close contacts of that person who contracted the virus. Muswellbrook also has its stay-at-home orders now back in place. In the state's north, Byron Shire and the Tweed will come out of lockdown at midnight tonight. It ends a week-long lockdown there caused by a television crew filming in the area. The border bubble with Queensland will return at 1 a.m, so essential workers can cross into the state. And Kempsey also will come out of lockdown at midnight. Elsewhere, there have been 5 new cases in the far west, 4 in Wilcannia. That's 25% of the remote community that has now contracted the virus. In the west, there are 21 new cases. The majority of those are in Wellington. The Hunter, New England, has had 63 new cases. There are another 29 cases on the Central Coast. So, Jeremy, residents in those lockdown areas are urged to get tested and to remain vigilant.
Louisa, thank you. The federal government has rejected findings from the Disability Royal Commission that the vaccine rollout has failed Australians living with disability. A draft report from the inquiry found the Health Department deprioritised the vaccination of people living in residential disability accommodation, putting those who are vulnerable at risk. Resources were instead diverted to the aged care sector in the early stages of the rollout. The Federal Health Secretary says vaccination rates of people living with disability are still higher than the rest of the population.
The reason why we did not stop doing residential in-reach disability, but we did focus most of the efforts of our contracted in-reach providers on residential aged care on the clear medical advice that these were a significantly higher risk.
The Royal Commission found that the Health Department's actions were made worse by a lack of communication with the disability sector. More than 3 months of lockdown has been a challenge for almost everyone, but some are struggling more than others. A new report has found that more than half of Sydney-siders in West and South-Western Sydney can't cope without extended family members.
This home is a hive of activity with just 2 kids. But Ehab Hardy and Rana Ismail's family is so much bigger.
It's hard to count how it's a big family, right? So Rana, she has 6 sisters and a brother, and her parents as well.
They say lockdown has been stressful because they couldn't see them.
It was very hard. We're not used to it, you know what I mean? Like we're not used to not see each other.
They're not alone. This report by the Western Sydney Migrant Resource Centre reveals that 53% of residents can't cope being separated from their extended family.
One important thing to note here is that policies are framed for nuclear families in mind. And now that we've seen this gap and how different and diverse called communities are, future policies need to have that lens on about how it is you provide policies and services to these specific vulnerable communities.
The study also found that locals don't trust government officials, including contact tracers. Experts fear that could cause social issues long after the restrictions are lifted.
We have learned some of our lessons about, what works and what doesn't in terms of engaging communities during this pandemic period, but that, still frustrations are out there. In the last couple of weeks, we've seen that come out in different ways in terms of, the protests down in Victoria.
Hi, how are you?
For Ehab and Rana, seeing their family will be the first step in recovering from a lockdown they'd rather forget.
Hello, say hi.
Marianne Toke, ABC News, Sydney.